You'd expect a house like Knebworth to be full of its fair share of history. After all, it's been around for over 500 years. But according to some of the people who live and work there, it's not full of just mortals. There are other things that lurk at Knebworth. We spoke to House Administrator Joe Birch to find out some of Knebworth's history.
The house is actually just over 500 years old, so it's a lot older than it looks from its exterior now, which is very much Victorian Gothic. It was built in 1490 by a gentleman called Sir Robert Lytton, and he was a Derbyshire man, and he fought with Henry Tudor at the Battle of Bosworth in 1485. And then when Henry became King Henry, Sir Robert was given a place at his court, so he needed somewhere a little bit closer to London, and so he bought the land at Knebworth for £800.
So what are the experiences that have made people suspect a paranormal presence?
I was winding, I think it's a French clock, it's rather an old one, rather nice, in the picture gallery. And I'm winding up as usual. Suddenly, someone grabbed me round the waist and sort of tickled my ribs. You know, with that son not my wife, but I thought, I turned around to say to my wife, stop messing about. There's no one there. And so I thought, well, that's strange, but I didn't say anything to anyone until it happened again. Exactly the same thing about 2 weeks later. Exactly the same thing happened again. So I told my wife about it then. On another occasion, I wound the clock up, I went to close the face up down the front, and both her hands flew off. I had to pick these up off the carpet. I put them back on, but I couldn't find the cotter pin which fixes them. I had to get a piece of a dressmaker's pin to, it's still in there now. So I couldn't explain those things, but well, that's my experiences there.
And what does psychic investigator Gloria Conway make of Jack's experience in the picture gallery?
What I picked up in here is a white lady as such. She's a tallish woman, thinnish with her head bent, and she seems to have a grey veil. But she's a very misty character. I think you'd probably feel her more than you'd actually see her, quite honestly. It's more a feeling.
We asked Joe if there had been any other experiences in this room that supported our psychic's description.
Certainly Lady Cobbold in the picture gallery has either seen or felt the presence of a lady. She calls her the Lonely Lady. Although her identity really isn't known, you can really only surmise from the characters that you know have lived in the house.
And that's not all.
I used to sleep in one of the rooms at the top of the house, and quite a few nights I had this sensation of like a cat. I presumed it was a cat, it felt like a cat, just pawing at the blankets and just gently doing this kind of sensation of pulling the covers. And it used to wake me up, and I used to get a little bit frightened about it, so I used to sleep with the light on. And it happened quite a few times. And I mentioned it occasionally, and then quite a few years later, Peter Cobbold, was one of the sons here, he slept in that bedroom, and he came down to breakfast one morning and said he felt this cat on his bed pulling the blankets. So it happened to him as well.
Gloria went along to the bedroom to see what she could pick up.
In this particular room, there seems to be a column of white energy that moves around. I would imagine it would quite frighten anyone that's in the room. But I don't think it actually originates from this room. I think it comes from another room. But it seems to sort of drift around the bedroom. Now, the interesting thing is that I also picked up this group of women in 20s style clothing, to my mind. They were talking about a man and an aeroplane. I kept seeing this chap with this aeroplane. That came through very, very clear. But it was quite a sunny day when they were talking about it, and they seemed to be chatting on and on and on. all about this aeroplane. And that's basically all I picked up in this room.
So not a cat, but maybe something more interesting. We asked Patty what she thought about Gloria's description.
I found it fascinating, the story of the women speaking in the bedroom which I used to sleep in. And the fact that we're talking about an aeroplane. And one of the sons, Anthony, died in a airplane crash in 1933. And that's presumably who they were speaking about. I found that quite fascinating. Kind of a bit spooky too, I think.
There was one other hotspot in Knebworth House that Gloria wanted to tell us about.
What I picked up in this room was, I picked up the last stages of somebody's life, the last couple of years. A very elderly man, but a very powerful man. He was very, he'd made a lot of friends, but an awful lot of enemies as well. And he was, it's difficult to put into words, but he was talking about the changes must go on, things must progress. You can't stop things, they've got to go on. But he was a very tired man by the time that we sort of tuned into him, really. But in his time, a very dominant and a very powerful man.
And what did Joe make of Gloria's findings? Did they correlate with the history of the building?
Yes, it was fascinating hearing what Gloria had to say about the house and the personalities that she was picking up. There's so much that has happened in the house, obviously, over its 500-year history, and even with all the records that we have and all the information that we have to sift through, there are quite possibly people that we don't know about. We don't know all the people who have lived in every generation in the house. So that's quite difficult, really, when she's talking about people that she's sensing, to know exactly who it might be. But the interesting thing as well is that there have been so many changes architecturally to the house that the fact that she got the periods of the house correct in every room that she went to. For example, when she went to the bedroom upstairs, that was a late Victorian addition to the house, and so it was quite appropriate that she should have picked up 20th century characters in there. In the library, she was picking up a Tudor character, which is quite possible. Even more interesting, later on, she did mention to me that she felt that the room was not as that person would have seen it. And in fact, that she said that it could have even been outside, which is very likely because the library is a later addition to the house. So very interesting that she could pick up on that sort of thing.
Knebworth is one of those sort of stately homes that has a warm, friendly, lived-in sort of feel. So it's not surprising that a number of ghosts are still lurking there, and they really don't want to go. And frankly, who can blame them?